host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
God is Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your favorite community radio station. We're putting out all kind of inputs for you in your community. So come on and listen to us and tune us in. Get on our Facebook, Instagram, and all, as we're doing it right here for you in your community with Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And God is an inspiration of gospel music. Also, we're doing a lot of different things in your community. We give out free food. We give out a lot of things in the community. We do a lot of shows. We do a lot of things on the sports part, and we want you to come on out and tune us in and come to the community, and we do a lot of things in your community. So make sure you go to our website, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and also go to the God Is website and look us up and see what we do in your community, something maybe you might like. So come on by and check us out from 11 to 2. Free food giveaway.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
Different rules apply when it gets this late, you know what I mean? It's like after hours.
Whatever gets you through the night, it's all right.
Hello, I'm an unpaid spokesman for DJ Sotovaci. I'd like to invite you to listen to his free-form music show. It's popular music the way it was never intended to be heard. Whatever gets you through the night, late nights, here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Oh, no. Whatever gets you through the night.
Welcome to the coronavirus pandemic. I'll take coronavirus for 100. Fever, chills, shortness of breath, loss of taste or smell. What is staying home and isolate? Correct. Coronavirus for 200. Inability to stay awake, persistent pain or pressure in chest, trouble breathing. What is seek immediate help? Correct.
Coronavirus for 500.
Crippling and potentially dead infectious disease eliminated the United States with vaccination.
What is the polio vaccine?
Correct.
I'll take coronavirus for 700.
The Daily Double! Should I take the coronavirus vaccine? Wait. Hold up. This is not a game. It's time for serious discussions. We have coronavirus vaccines, but not everyone is comfortable taking them. Here's the facts. Based on what has been proven about vaccines for other diseases, COVID-19 vaccine may help keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you do get the virus. Getting vaccinated also may protect people around, particularly those at greater risk for severe illness from COVID-19. We don't yet have all of the answers. Get informed, talk to your healthcare physician, and make the right decision for you. This is a message supported by the Washington State Department of Health.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Heartbeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. Heartbeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through Heartbeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Heartbeat Radio. I hope this is coming in okay. I'm taking it remote this evening. Thank you for joining Heartbeat Radio and podcast. I got to remember to say that. Hey, tonight we have a great show planned for you. My normal co-host, Joy Stanford, I don't know, she has this thing called a job, and the job took place this evening, so she isn't here. But man, are we lucky to get a guest co-host with us tonight. Let me introduce in, I know this community all knows her well. Let's introduce in Miss Erin Jones, who is on with me tonight to co-host with me. Erin is an educator. She has run for public office in the state of Washington. She has this phenomenal book we're showing here, Bridges to Heal Us. More importantly, she's my sister and my friend out here doing the same work as us. So welcome Erin Jones onto Heartbeat Radio this evening to co-host with me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Erin is joining us from Nashville. Let me just give some props out to my friend here. She is in Nashville attending the National Superintendent's Conference as one of its speakers. Erin's run for office was not in vain. She's on the biggest stage now and in the education space for the national superintendent. So we'll let the person who won stay in his seat while Erin goes out and changes the world. So, Erin, here you are. Thank you for, I know it's late for you this evening to be on with us tonight. So thank you for joining me.
Of course, anytime I can support you.
I also want to give honor to, because we're fortunate to get, it is midway through legislative session, and we're fortunate to have the chair of the Black Caucus on the first half of the show with us, just to give us the community an update on what's been happening in legislative session, what the Black Caucus is doing, et cetera, et cetera. So let's introduce in the chair of the Black Caucus, Representative Jamila Taylor.
Hi, greetings. Hi. All this greatness on the line. I don't even know if I can keep up.
Well, this show has been focusing on the voice of the Black woman, and so I wanted to make sure that we had on these powerful Black women who are out here in the world changing it with me. Hello to our guests who are signing on and commenting that are seeing us here tonight. Thank you for joining and listening to this conversation. Let's start, Representative Taylor. Let's hear from you. I know your time. I saw all the posts. I know everybody's been working round the clock. You've gotten hardly any sleep. So I thank you so much for coming on with us this evening just to give us an update on what's happening. Short session this year. You guys are working round the clock. What's happening there?
Intense is an understatement. We did go till 6:30 in the morning, and I had a conversation with myself just a little while ago, and I'm thinking, remember that time a couple of years ago when we, had the marathon overnight session, and then I reminded myself that was this morning. So that's how intense it was to hear all of the debate, and folks just essentially yelling at us for 12 hours when we're trying to do important big things for community, those who don't have the same access to the power structures, and when we're doing really important work, folks are gonna hate. I don't know how else to say it. I guess I'm supposed to have like a level of coolness in this role, but I feel like I have to speak from the heart and speak from what I know. And the difficulty is, navigating complex issues and distilling it down for what can be a simple vote that ends up being a very painful process.
Who's yelling at you, and what sort of things are you I don't know if you want to talk about it as the House or if you want to talk about it as the caucus. What sort of issues are you dealing with right now?
So we were hitting cutoff, and House Bill 1837, which is the ergonomics bill, and many folks on this call might remember in 2001 or 2002, there was an initiative that essentially said, no, we don't want you taking care of us. We don't want, ergonomics to be a part of a business structure. And we received a agency request bill that was shepherded through Representative Dan Bernowski, and essentially labor and industries are investigating a lot of workplace injuries that are repetitive injuries. So how do we ensure that our workers can do their very best on a daily basis, but not have their bodies break down unnecessarily? And I heard arguments where, like, some jobs you're like a football player, and so you have a early time, and we're talking about people who are doing repetitive things, and here we sit here, and some of us are keyboard warriors getting carpal tunnel. Imagine if you're lifting 50-pound boxes every day. Imagine if you're doing the same motion to scan a document or scan an item every single day so that you can get your item from this big box thing that we all know that ships around the world. So, how do we protect workers who are barely getting paid a living wage job, not even a family wage job? And then, of course, they could have permanent injuries from the repetitive motion. So we're long past overdue. We have long advanced in the research and the studies that tells us that we absolutely need to take care of our workers every single day. And when you have folks who pay attention to the needs of the workers that makes other folks who want to, increase their bottom line, who want to increase their profit margin, who continue to watch the disconnected, that wealth inequities grow and grow and grow. Yeah, they're going to yell at us because we're, taking the power structure away from them.
So I'm curious, because this is not your first year in the legislature, and I've been watching the legislature now for the last 15 years pretty closely. Would you say that there's more contention right now than you've seen in a long time?
I mean, I think there's less willingness to negotiate. Part of that issue is the fact that we're not seeing each other day to day. It's easy to be the keyboard warrior, even amongst our colleagues, and be a stick in the mud around certain issues. Where if we were in person, we could say, "Hey, what did you mean by this? I saw your body language on the floor. I saw how you said something," and it's a little bit different when you're in person and you can just pull them aside. Or there are colleagues who you thought were in alignment with you, and you don't have the opportunity to say, "Hey, can we have a 5-minute conversation?" And so there's a lot of misunderstandings that are happening because we can't just pull each other aside and have sidebar conversations. But we also know that some folks, when they have sidebar conversations, actually blow things up. So there are folks like me who are like all about the policy, and I'm learning about the politics, like the bigger picture politics. It used to be that I would understand what's going on in my district, but now you've got to pay attention to, how my rural brothers and sisters have to, address an issue. They don't have the same resources at the table that we have maybe in suburban or urban areas. And so we look at things in a more holistic way statewide. And then, of course, when we talk about, well, we're the first in the nation to do something, we can't be afraid to be the first, because we will end up being the last in so many ways. And like right now, we're amongst the last in the nation in terms of taking care of our family members and neighbors who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so we continue to fall behind. And this is a population that is losing access to housing. This is a population that's losing access to the resources absolutely necessary. And when we talk about building budgets that meet our values, when we had the Great Recession, we restored some things for a lot of other folks, including, corporate, payouts and what have you. But we did not restore the resources for the intellectual and developmental disability communities. And we're hundreds of millions of dollars behind in the investments. And people think that, we are a community that really cares about the marginalized communities. These are folks, and some of our folks who have been misunderstood, who've been ostracized, who are funneled into homelessness because we don't want to pay attention to folks who are different than us, who don't communicate the same way, who may not be able to communicate the same way. And so I'm passionate about this because my twin brother has developmental disabilities, and I want him to be out in the community. I know he's tired of seeing my face every day. I know he's like, well, I want to go out and do this thing and that thing, but I don't want to bring my sister along. And he shouldn't be, stuck with me all the time. He should be able to create his own system and support system from folks who want to be in his presence. But he has a level of discernment like, there's a lot of, terrible people out here. I'd rather stay home and mess with my sister and be like, hey, you're going to entertain me, Jamila.
Well,
so I'm curious what. Oh, go ahead.
I just wondered if I just wanted to make sure we capture, because I know we don't have you for long.
Yeah.
Can you tell the community like what are the top priorities of the Democrats and what they're focusing on in session?
Yes. What I can do is I always have my notes around. There's so much that we're doing that it's hard to kind of capture it in a succinct way. We have 4 buckets of areas that we want to what we want to do. We want to the House Democrats want to serve Washingtonians better. So any way we can address challenges of the past. This is House Bill 1827, a community reinvestment plan. So many folks have been pushed out of community because our history of the drug policies, and how do we reinvest in communities where you can get business loans, get home ownership opportunities, have your criminal record vacated, and things like that, that ensure that we have full participation in the body politic. We want to make sure that we strengthen economic well-being of Washingtonians. So that means the economic recovery can't just be for some as we are merging out of the system. And we've seen the economic forecast that says we're doing a lot better than a lot of states, but that's not equally applied. There is a lack of equity in here. And when you're talking about folks who have their incomes, get squeezed by the increased rents that are coming. I mean, we did a lot for rental protections last year, but the one thing that we couldn't do is, ensure that the rents wouldn't go up too much. And we've seen rental price gouging that's happened not only in the state of Washington, across the nation. So if you think about people being squeezed out of their homes. And then, of course, we have to continue for the next 400 years working in advancing racial equity and racial justice. And so there's a lot of things that we have to look at from a racial equity lens that seem like simple bills, but then they blow up because people weren't looking at it from a more holistic way. And then, of course, climate crisis is still upon us. And so how do we navigate those systems? So those are the four main areas that we're working in terms of the House Democrats, and working within those value systems to ensure that Washingtonians are really, truly served better.
And so may I ask another question then to go deeper into it, because the housing crisis and Black business recovery are two significant issues in Black community, and the gouging on rent is real. Without putting my business out there, I'm just telling you, it's something else what has happened. And so essentially what the gouging is doing is making sure that only, again, back to my corporate stuff, if brown and Black people are making 63 cents and 53 cents to the dollar, and so we're already behind 35 and 40% behind market on pay. And then the homes are selling, at least in the area I'm at, they're selling for 35, 45, and 50% over asking price. And so essentially what we're doing is making the state all white, because those are the people who are getting the high earning power, not the brown and Black people. And the housing. So one question I had, I know when you talked about that, is what specifically are the Democrats doing to address that particular issue, rent, getting affordable housing, or a way to protect people in their housing? I'll pause there and let you.
I mean, I will say that not all Democrats have the same viewpoint around increasing the housing supply. And this is where we need, as a community, to start talking to our legislators, especially those who are really protectionist around single family zoning and the issues around that. And then if you think about some communities like, Federal Way, suburban community, where people think that the quality of the community is, a place where you can just have all kinds of housing and not think about the mix of middle income and higher income housing, that then, you decrease the tax base by some of the things that are happening. So why is it that you want to protect only folks in the wealthy neighborhoods and then everybody else has to, change? I think we have to increase the housing supply every single area. Some of the places that are squeezed the most are in rural areas where you think that there is a wealth of land to acquire, but it's owned privately, and folks are holding on to their pieces of land. And if you think about being in Ponderay County and your home price is $400,000 in Ponderay County, you know where that is? That is in the northeast corner of Washington State. Does it have great broadband access? So are you able to start a business from your home and be there and do whatever? Or can you have education? What happens if your school needs to, go virtual for any reason? Can you do that? Like, these are things that have, disparate impact, not only on the Black community, the brown community, because the brown community is all over, Washington State. And folks seem to not really understand that our brown brothers and sisters are hurting just as much as we are. So in terms of I'll just go specifically into the legislative Black Caucus priorities. Health disparities. We have such a lag behind, and medical racism is so very real. So very real. I mean, I've experienced, I'm sure others on this call have experienced it too. And so we want to make sure that we create an African American health board to talk about health policy from the Black perspective. We want to make sure that we create flagship stations that are very similar to CMAR Community Health Center, and build out the Harriet Tubman Community Health Center, and starting in South Seattle. But we already have plans for other locations throughout the state, already in the works. We want to make sure that we have doulas for all. Think about the health disparities that women face, women and individuals face as they're trying to give birth, and the healthcare that's associated with that. Like that, the risk to us is so much higher than some of our counterparts, and just the treatment that we receive. So we're trying to make sure that we have the professionalization of that whole industry, and making sure that more people have access to that. And then, of course, in terms of economic recovery, we still need to make sure that we have business opportunities, because like, how many people are making the pivot? Like, do I really want to stay making $15 an hour as a restaurant worker, or can I have a different vision for myself? Do I want to go into the healthcare industry where I can be my own X, Y, and Z? Like, these traveling nurses are actually making way more money than the local folks. How do we make sure that the local folks are getting the same money that the traveling nurses are getting? So are you a traveling nurse who lives in your own backyard? That impacts the amount of healthcare that we get in our communities. Those are decisions that we need to figure out. How do we make sure that there's rate parity? How do we make sure that we retain the highly skilled individuals from our medical field are able to stay in the medical field? Because you can't outsource to another country our medical healthcare needs. We just can't. And of course, we have to address the long historical racist policies involved in the criminal justice system, because there's a whole swath of us who can't even access the resources because of prior criminal backgrounds. Even when we changed the law, the legalization of marijuana didn't necessarily legalize or clear the records of individuals who've been impacted by a drug policy in the past. That when the Supreme Court decriminalized possession of of controlled substances, that didn't mean that everyone automatically had that cleared from their record. It's been a difficult and long process, even though it's been a relatively short time, that folks are still trying to get their records cleared. It was not automatic. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done around decisions that were made in the past. Some folks think that we shouldn't talk about it as mistakes. Hell, they were mistakes. Black folks knew that these were policies that were bad back in the day. We knew all day long. So yes, they were mistakes. You just impacted us way differently than it did some other community members who were on the other side of the decision-making tree. And that's why you need to have inclusion. That's why we have to have these perspectives at the table, and feelings get hurt behind closed doors. Feelings get hurt. This is not about being nice. It's about doing what's right for community. And yes, my feelings get hurt too, because some folks come to me and say, hey, Jamila, your opinion about this is limited. Can I educate you on what I know? And I am always willing to learn more. That doesn't mean I will agree in the future, but I want to learn more and understand the bigger picture, because I can only know what I know. I can only have my lived experience and my learned experience. And this is why I need to talk to folks in the education space, the corporate space, the labor space, all these other places, because that mix of opinions, a mix of ideas, mix of facts helps us make better decisions moving forward. But we know from the history that those decisions have been made by folks who are very similar to each other. Very similar to each other.
I'm curious as a public, and I know that usually African American Legislative Day would be this coming Monday. Historically, what can the public do, particularly the Black community? What can we do to support you? What can we do to support the issues that you've just raised? Obviously a lot of things are virtual. Just the way that things work right now is really different. I read a letter on the anti-CRT bill. They didn't call it that, but I read it. I saw the writing. I read a page-long letter that I put into evidence in the House Ed Committee. But what are some other ways that people in community could support you?
So, one thing that I really want to ensure that I do as a Legislative Black Caucus chair is to have conversations throughout the year and find ways for whether the community is connecting with me as the chair, me and my vice chair, Rep. Kirsten Harris-Talley, or individual members, that we're giving you access to us to give opinions. We're representing maybe 3 counties right now: Pierce County, King County, and Snohomish County, but we know we're all over the state. And so try and find ways where we can bridge that gap between other counties where you're not as comfortable talking to your own legislator, that you want to talk to someone who understands your lived experience. But then also, we are not the gatekeepers. You can go directly to those other legislators, but there's also other mechanisms that can amplify our voice when we're saying to community, write your letters to the editor, especially these small town newspapers. The folks that are writing to those letters to the editor are often folks who already have great access to electeds and they know the process. And so continue to write those letters to the editors. I also need folks to show up at school board meetings, because, when you talk about statewide policy, it gets implemented at a local level and it can be dismantled at a local level. And a lot of times local leaders will say, well, community doesn't want it. Well, the folks that you're engaging with may not want it, but there's a bigger body politic that may not have supported you otherwise. So getting involved in the local politics, knowing what's going on in the school boards, and knowing that actually people of color are getting harassed disproportionately on policies that we're not making, we're getting blamed for, we're getting harmed over. So at the end of the day, we need to make sure that, we have a different voice. I mean, even at the school board in my particular community, Federal Way, which is one of the most diverse in the state, there are folks who are saying we need to have a segregated school, literally going back to 1954. Referencing Paul Laurence Dunbar High School system from Washington, D.C. that was dismantled in 1954 with the Brown versus Board of Education. So when you think about people who want to separate individuals, who don't want education to be inclusive of other experiences, because then that changes their mindset or their children's mindset. When they say, oh, I want to go back to the day when, everything was easy. Well, people didn't used to say negative things to me about this, and this. We didn't have these problems. That's because you had so much power. You muted the voices of those who were being harmed by your actions. That's how powerful that is.
Do you and the other legislators of color, I know we have both a Black Caucus and a member of color caucus, do you all feel safe? Are you in person in Olympia at times? I know it's a remote session, but I've seen photos with you guys in Olympia. So do you feel safe?
We have security on campus, but that's Olympia.
Question.
That's Olympia. We have security. We have security for legislators on campus. It's not a place where folks are coming on campus anymore. We had a bill last year that passed that said no open carry, no weapons on campus. So we feel safer. We feel safer. But will I ever feel perfectly safe anywhere? I'm a Black woman in America.
Well, the Proud Boys have shown up in Olympia. I mean, I live right on the edge of Olympia, and the Proud Boys have shown up more times in this last 6 months than in all the 15 years that I've lived there. So, I mean, that's a great question, because I would say I don't feel safe, and it's the town that I live in, right? Like there are times when I don't feel safe there. I can't imagine being a lawmaker right now and being like, well, I feel like at 6 feet tall, like I'm always a target, but you're a target in a different way. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just a powerful thing for people to think about. You know, in our progressive Washington state, how safe are we actually?
Yeah, and I asked it. I asked it because I know we don't have you the whole hour, Representative Taylor, so I want to be honoring your time here. I know that we are heading this year into this nasty midterm election, and I know that BIPOC people are targeted. And so I've been following some of the, tweets and the things by the Republican caucus leader and seeing their mess. And so I know we're not safe. None of us are safe. And you are in the session trying to change and impact change while they're trying harder to silence us and shut us up and take us back to 1954. So I asked it to highlight, this is how much work, this is what is happening and the risk that it takes for you and your fellow constituents, brown and black constituents who are down in Olympia, fighting for change and trying to make change on behalf of all of us in our community. We're at time, so let me thank you for coming on and updating the community on what you have been doing so far. So we're going to stay at track for the next few weeks and follow you through the end of session. And then we should all have our masks off by that time, and we'll take you out for dinner and properly thank you for doing this work. So thank you for coming on. We're going to take a quick station identification. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Erin will be right back.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio. .world.
All of us have struggled through the COVID-19 pandemic, and many of our communities have been particularly hard hit. Some things definitely need to change, but a few things should stay the same, like protecting your child from serious diseases you can prevent now. Preventable diseases like measles, mumps, and whooping cough. Is camp, childcare, or in-person school on your family's agenda? Give your child a healthy and safe summer and school year by making sure they're up to date on vaccinations and well child visits. You have the power to protect. Call your healthcare provider to find out what vaccinations your child is due for and make an appointment today. If you need help finding a provider, visit parenthelp123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588. An interpretation is available.
On Rainier Avenue Radio.world, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good, and who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Stories, songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. Oh, what's up, baby? To your help.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.world community update on free online resources through Seattle Public Library. You can do consumer research, take a free online technology class, read newspapers from major cities, and more. There are resources for students of any age, including lifelong learning, student research, and test preparation tools. Access online resources with your library card anywhere with an internet connection at spl.org/online-resources.
Yo, what's good? It's D-Money, and you should definitely check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Pacific, right on Rainier Avenue Radio.
With pint-sized Patron, Pete Treasy the Don. Y'all be sure to clean your mirrors as we play brand new hip-hop and R&B from locals and worldwide.
It's ID Yourself, a.k.a. Malcolm Flex. Make sure you check out Fresh Juice every Wednesday, Pacific Standard Time from 9 to 11 p.m.
And to get those exclusive interviews that we be doing.
Sipping a brand new fresh juice every single week.
Yeah. Every Wednesday, 9 to 11, Rainier Avenue Radio.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Le Viet Tây Bắc, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Welcome back to Heartbeat Radio and podcast this evening. I am your host, Cindi Bright. I have a special co-host on with me tonight, Erin Jones. Let's bring Erin back on with me after we just spent the first half having a conversation with the chair of the Black Caucus, Representative Jamila Taylor. I apologize for, it looks like I'm getting people are messaging me that it's pretty dark. I am remote today, taking this, doing this show in a hotel room. And so it's pretty dark. Can you see me okay, Erin?
I can see you. It's dark though. I know I'm in a hotel room too, and I had to move the lamp so that people could see
I
me.
know, I was moving the lamp around with the break, trying to figure out how can I bring more light in here. It's pretty dark in this room. I apologize for that. Yeah, I was glad to have Representative Taylor come on and update us. I was curious what was actually happening in session down there. You know, I had structured the show tonight to talk about the pain or the voice of Black women and what we're all dealing with right now. And so I'm, you know, talking to a lot of Black women and listening to the strife, I guess, would be the thing that, and I have been watching a lot of pain being posted on social media. I too myself have been experiencing a lot of pain with things that are being done, the dismissal, the abuse, the, just the hatred and the lack of regard for us and our lives. And I was just wanting to talk about that a little bit more because I see so many, with the death of Miss USA and the shock that that sends to the world about what is perceived to be somebody who's you would never think would be there. It shows the lack of understanding of what we have about what this society is doing to Black women. What are your thoughts about that whole thing, Erin, that whole topic of?
As you know, I work with young people, and even though a lot of my work is training teachers and superintendents and principals, I think part of the reason I'm really good at that is because I stay close to the ground. So I'm with young people all the time, and hearing from young people, being around young people. I can't tell you of a Black girl this year who is feeling like her best self right now. I mean, I'm getting calls from young Black, like middle school and teenage girls who've never had really apparent issues with mental health, who are being called names, who just feel really alone this year in ways that they've not experienced before. Just as I go into school buildings, the level of mental health crises that I'm seeing is just at an all-time high for our particularly our Black girls. I would say all of our brown girls, but in particularly our Black girls. And, one of the things that I think is true for us right now, man, we talk so bad about Black girls and Black women even. I mean, even if we look at music. And so young women right now who are school age don't get to really physically be around people the same way they did before the pandemic. And so they're getting all their cues from social media, which is not a good place to get your cues, your primary cues. I think I love social media as a way to connect, but if that's your primary form of connection, it sets our kids up for failure because it sets them up to compare themselves to other people, which is, I say to students, comparison is death. And I just feel like that's what a lot of our young, I'll speak to our youth, our Black girls, is they are comparing themselves with people, comparing themselves with like YouTube stars, but then also watching like Miss America kill herself and watching just the ways that American laws are shutting down our voices, are shutting down the potential of even telling our histories, the potential of reading about us. I mean, the kids are paying attention to all of the anti-critical race theory conversations, and what they are taking it really personally. Like, you don't want us to talk about ourselves? What? Like, what? And so there are all these messages, and we think kids aren't paying attention, but I will tell you, young people are paying attention to what's happening in politics. They're watching where people's voting rights are disappearing. And they're seeing all the single moms that are just trying to do the right thing and are still being shut down. And so, yeah, it is really painful. And we're also caregivers. This is another thing that came up today. I was on a text thread with our former teacher of the year, who was one of my students, who's a Black woman. And we were talking about, she and I are presenting this weekend at a conference for Black and brown teachers. And we're going to talk about radical self-love. And one of the things that came up in our conversation is because we're givers, as women, we're naturally givers. I think Black women, like, extra, like we are extra in terms of giving. But one of the things that Brooke Brown says all the time, and I say a version of it, is we can't give what we don't have. Mm-hmm. And I think too many of us have been taught to just give and give and give, because it's the only way we get ahead is we have to give 10 times more than a white woman does. Not saying that white women don't work hard, but we have to work 10 times harder. And so we're giving 10 times more, but then that means that we're not taking that extra to give to ourselves.
I think
right?
the way that I have characterized that to people is that we deserve to be supported in the same ways that we support. And society does not support us in any shape or form, even as we are on air tonight. And we are not going to post some of the comments that are coming through. Even the fact that we have comments that come in that are negative towards us, as we are getting them while we're on air tonight, because we are not valued, respected, wanted, and we are just being pushed to go away. And let me say to the people who think that it's fair game to come on and attack us as Black women when we are having a conversation, while you don't even have the balls to put your face on your stream thing so we can see who you are, because you hide behind your racism and you hide behind your hatred, while our lives are out here fighting for the rights for all people. And so when we are advocating for and speaking to for Black women, we are the most marginalized group of people. Malcolm X said it, the most hated, the most disrespected women are Black women. And we're out here fighting for our lives right now, literally for our lives and our families' lives. So the disrespect that we have to take day in and day out, we deserve rest, we deserve peace, we deserve protection, we deserve to have our lives valued too.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I'm first of all, I'm glad that I can't see the comments. One of the things that I've learned, just because you and I ran for office, I just don't read comments anymore. It's so rare that the comments are positive that, oh, thank you, Darren. Now I see the comments. I guess I needed that one.
We'll show that one. We'll show. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah. But when I've stopped reading comments, because I think there are so many. This is something else that I shared today with educators, and I think this is true especially for right now. Hurt people, and there are so many hurting people. I'll just use today as an example, like this particular experience. If you don't like Black women, period, why are you here tonight? Like, why are you watching this? Why? Go put your energy somewhere else. If you don't like what we're talking about, you don't have to be here. So take your energy somewhere else. I mean, that's just, one of the things I think about as a middle school teacher. So much of this behavior just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you only have so much time in a day. So if you're showing up here just to hate on us, like, that just doesn't make sense to me. There's so many other things that you could be doing with your time.
But it's indicative, though, why I brought it up, which I won't even do the graciousness of showing the comment. Why I bring it up is just to show the audience and to show people how something as basic as us sitting here having a conversation draws attacks. Yeah. And so if you think about something this simple and then magnify us in the workplace, magnify us in Olympia fighting for change, like what Erin and I did running for office. Can you imagine what we tolerate? What we tolerate every single day? And then we're expected to be, our moods, we're not allowed to be stressed. We're not allowed to be angry. We can't show up any other way but a way that is trying to make other people feel comfortable while we are hurting. We're hurting. I know I can say, I just can't stand how this screen is looking. I'm hurting. Like, this is hard every day of my life to do what I do, to advocate for change, to, it's not easy.
Exhausting. It's exhausting for sure. It's funny because tonight I went out to eat. So I'm in Nashville, about to do my biggest speaking engagement of my life tomorrow, which is unreal. It's really kind of like I still, until I get up on stage tomorrow to talk to all these people, I'm still kind of blown away that I get to do that tomorrow. But I'm here by myself. So my husband teaches. He can't leave right now. There are no substitutes. So he can't travel with me right now. So I'm on my own. And I was trying to think about, like, I don't want to go out in Nashville in the dark and find dinner. But I did. I walked a couple blocks away. I'm 6 feet tall. So I just walk like I belong here and I'm ready to run. I always have my tennis shoes on. So I'm ready to run if I have to. But I ended up in this big place called Assembly Hall. And it has lots of different places to eat. And then there's a common eating area. And I was sitting by myself at a table and ended up with 5 educators. They don't know me, but they're at the same conference, it turns out. And they were so excited to hear that I was the keynote speaker. And we talked for about 20 minutes. And at the end, this white gentleman, probably in his late 50s. And you may wonder, why do I mention he's white? Because it matters. It matters. He asks, well, why don't you run for office again? I really think you should run for office. And I said, sir, I don't know that you understand the levels of hate. I was just running to lead schools, just schools. I'm not running for governor, not trying to manage your money. I'm just running like to be a public servant for schools. And I had a person on my team, their only job, and they lived in Hawaii, their only job from Hawaii was to take down things on social media that were so hateful that she knew it would destroy me if I saw it in the morning. So that was her only job on my campaign. And she actually chose that job for herself because she saw so many of the painful comments. And so just to your point, this happens in the comments for us. And it happens to all of us who are trying to advocate for, we're not trying to get rich doing this stuff. Like, we are doing this work because we really care about the community. And last thing I want to say, to your point, you mentioned something about serving the most marginalized. I think a lot of people don't realize that if we were to better serve the people at the bottom, which are Black trans women, really,
Exactly.
but Black women, if we serve the people at the bottom well, it definitely lifts everything for everybody. And so you may hear us talking about Black people tonight, but y'all, if you look at my track record, I've served white poor children really, really well, y'all.
Erin,
Really well.
I've said it on this show several times. The fact that I think it was 2 shows ago, somebody teased me. They said it in a joking way, but when people tease you, there's a level of truth to it.
It's the truth.
And he said to me, I got in public, and he said, "Oh, you have somebody white on your show tonight." And I said, "Yeah, I actually have white friends too." Like, just because and the fact that we have to say this, I do Heartbeat, and I do the work that I do to advocate for the most marginalized people. I am a Black woman. I have every right to, my family is Black. Like, we suffer from this society. It's okay that I'm fighting and advocating for them. It's not taking away anything from anybody else. And so this visceral reaction that anytime, and we have to caveat this when we speak, but they never caveat for us. There's never a caveat when they're talking about their issues without regard for how it's impacting me or you. We're commenting that all the time to keep peace and let people know we're not adversaries to you. We're just trying to make change for the most marginalized people. And I don't know how else to build a level of understanding from people to understand that society will be better when most marginalized groups of people are better.
And I really think it all comes down to, and this is part of what I'm going to talk about in my keynote tomorrow, is when you have authentic relationship, not just with one Black person, because I can't stand when folks say, like, I have one Black friend, and they don't believe that my one Black friend, that's not, like, no, you don't, not just one Black. And to be honest, I don't know a Black person that has just one white friend. Like, we don't have that option, right? Like, we're surrounded by white people all the time. All of us have lots of white people in our worlds. But I would encourage, if you're listening right now and this maybe pisses you off or makes you feel uncomfortable, I would encourage you, look at your circle of friends. Look at your social media. Like, if everyone in your social media looks like you, if all your Twitter followers and all the people you follow look like you, then it's an opportunity to get outside your comfort zone. And here's what I'll say, and I know Cindi believes this too. We don't have a choice but to get outside of our comfort zone. We live in the discomfort zone every single day, and not by choice, by necessity. We have to, especially in Washington State. And so I want to encourage you, if you're watching and maybe this does make you uncomfortable, first of all, welcome to our world. Like, this is just how we live. But secondly, I would invite you in that discomfort to build relationship. Then I want you to think about, where could you go? Could you go volunteer at the Urban League? Could you volunteer with the NAACP? Heart Radio? Well, I mean, that Rainier Radio does really amazing stuff. Like, where could you volunteer? Could you attend a Black church? So if you're a conservative Christian person, could you just start going to a Black church? Not even every week, but once a month. Could you visit a different Black church and just begin to see the world through other people's eyes? That is one of the best ways to transform. And I find that it's really only people that don't have significant, authentic relationship with people who are not like them that show up this way. Because you know about us, but you don't know us.
Exactly. It is so true, Erin, the lack of exposure. I mean, I look through my timelines a lot, and I see what people, who they surround themselves with, and it's just fascinating to me. When I think about my own family and my son, who is married, but we're actually he got married during COVID, but the formal wedding is coming up in August. And so my daughter-in-law is Asian American, and her family and all the people, her mother is biracial. Like my family photos are, and I'm mixed, and, and Erin's dad is white. Like we have such a hodgepodge of race in our family, which is why I am an expert on race. I have just been around so many different people all of my life that I'm not threatened or afraid of other people just because they're different than me. But when you look on timelines and you do see that, like I look at some of Erin's friends that he went to school with, and all of their, hi Bonnie, thank you. When I look at some of his friends and their whole, they have 20 people in their wedding parties and they're all white. And that's the world I live in. And so we as Black women, you can see the comments coming in on the feed. We live in spaces of discomfort. We live in spaces of lack of inclusion. And we're constantly, for me, I'm trying to belong somewhere. And it's not easy to belong when people reject you just because of the way you speak, or, the criticism that comes in about me is just, I'm just give up. I gave up a long time ago. I can't please these folks. And so, were you saying something, Erin?
I was just going to say, one of the things that I've come to, and I think this was the greatest gift of running for office, is I learned I can't please everyone, and I refuse to try anymore. So one of the things, and this is about radical self-love for me, and my husband shared this. My husband is one of the wisest people I know. Y'all listening, his brother. His brother's Jesse Jones, Cairo News. But my husband is a really wise man. And when I ran for office, he said a version of this. But about 6 months ago, during kind of the height of the anti-critical race theory stuff, as I'm trying to help superintendents across the country navigate that, one of the things he said to me that just will never leave me is, Erin, I do not take criticism from people you would not ask for advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. He said, Erin, stop taking criticism. Stop taking critique from people you would not ask for advice. And I think sometimes we give away our hearts to people that don't deserve our energy. And so, for those of you listening, for whatever reason, if there are people in your life who are haters, who are taking your energy away, who have nothing positive to give you, like you, Cindi, I'm always willing to receive critique. I do as an educator, like I have to all the time. I wouldn't get good at what I did. And I'm a ball player. So part of being a ball player is you have to be willing to be coached, right? You have to be willing to have a coach say to you, your form is off. Right? If you are not willing to have a coach you, you're not going to get successful. Y'all, I was a baller. So I had to have lots of coaches say, your form is off. Erin, I need you to move this way, not that way. And so I'm willing to take critique. But if you don't ever have anything positive to say to me, and everything you have to say is about demeaning me and degrading me, then I just refuse to give away my energy to people like that anymore. And that's probably the greatest gift that I received from running for office.
This is the stuff I say this stuff almost on a daily basis. Brene Brown said it in her vulnerability speech when she talked about the people who bought the cheap seats versus the people who spent the money that are down. She's willing to, you're going to pay attention more to people who are investing in you.
And no different than, Erin, we have a relationship. We are friends, like authentic friends, and show up for each other. We can say things to each other because we've invested in each other. That becomes valuable and invaluable feedback to get from your sister that's close and that is not attacking you all the time. I have had to say recently, including in my own family, if you can't, if it takes you literally, I shouldn't throw my family's business out here, but I did have to tell my sister this last week when she started talking. I said, "Oh, it only took you 2 minutes and 45 seconds this time." And she's like, what are you talking about? Before you go into critique. And so people that are constantly critiquing, and I'm like, I don't take business advice from somebody who's never built a business, right? And so, if you've done it and you've been down that path and you've got some wisdom and you want to learn and you share it with me, I'm down. But if you're just quarterbacking everything I say and do because you don't like it or you perceive me as this, it just is what it, right? This is who I am. And so I'm just done, again, worrying about all of the opinions, unsolicited opinions about my life, my business, the way I speak, how I talk, what color my hair is. I mean, it's like always something somebody's got an opinion about. But, this is real conversation that I really wanted to have, Erin, because people are not, thank you for Christine for that. We just live in a life of being under attack all the time. And I don't know, to some of our listeners listening, if you are one of our white listeners, do you live like this? I'm curious to know, do my white listeners feel under attack every day also?
One of the things that just being in school spaces all the time right now, I think there's more attack on just the general public right now than ever, because I think we're really hurting right now. I have this theory that, hurt people, but right now, because there's nothing that's secure right now for anybody, like everything just seems so up in the air. And so what I'm hearing from even my white friends that are in education, there's more attack, like teachers and principals, more attack from parents, period, than ever. And I think it's exponential for us. So I think what I would offer tonight is I think everybody's under more attack than they've ever been, because we're insulated, we're isolated, we're hurting, we're tired, we're literally sick, right? But then what happens is that is exponential for those of us that have like additional targets. I feel like the target is bigger for us. So yeah, and I just wonder if we're under attack at an exponential rate. So I have talked to some white superintendents the last 2 days because I'm at the superintendent's conference, and they're experiencing targeting too. I would offer that it's not as personal. It's about policy and structure. It's not personal. I feel like our attacks, even when it's couched in policy, it's not policy oriented. It feels really personal.
I just went through a very personal attack. This was professionally in the past week. And while I can't talk about it because I signed a non-disclosure with this company, but I get attacked. I get attacked by women. It's always women, and it's always insecure women who are less. In this particular case, it's unfortunate because I was advocating for this woman, trying to help. I'm just a consultant, so I was trying to help that person set them up. She doesn't know that I was out there helping her while she was tearing me down behind my back and two people. And what was really bad about that is not the fact that she was tearing me down. I'm a lot older than her. I'm more educated than her. I'm more experienced than her. I was hired for my seasoning and my expertise. But somebody who doesn't have it can say one thing about us as Black women, and it is believed, and it is not. We are not supported.
Nope.
And so I had to make a decision in my best interest in the past couple of weeks, because I refuse to allow these people to continue to attack and have no protection of myself. And expose me and put me out there for people to harm me. This goes on all the time. And I think that people don't.
I wonder too, because we've talked about this in the past. We don't get to make more than one mistake. We make one mistake and it's over for us. White women and men get to make multiple mistakes. We make one mistake and that one mistake follows us to the grave. And
in my instance that I'm talking about, this wasn't a white woman. This was a brown woman. And what was really, and so the whole woman thing, but your point is well taken. I'm not dismissing it because disproportionately I have had the white women harm to me disproportionately. But the women thing is something else. And I firmly believe that if we as women, I know we're running out of time here, and I know that it's late for you, Erin. Thank you for the listeners who are participating in this dialogue with us tonight. If we as women, this was the call to action in my book, if we as women don't learn to come together, women have the power to change everything in this country. And the white women who have this proximity to power by staying attached to patriarchy, if you're choosing that over your fellow sisters, I just can say shame on you for creating harm to other people, because women are out here fighting to hold on to our, not just us, our daughters, our daughters and granddaughters, their voting rights, their access for earning power, all the things that women like myself and Erin are out here every day in the community fighting for. Erin, we're out of time. I can't, you know how much I adore you. You know how much I really appreciate everything you do and have done for me. You have been a total ally and support for me. And so I'm so grateful to have you on co-hosting with me tonight. From myself and our community, knowing that you're on a big stage tomorrow, doing your thing. You got prepared for this moment tomorrow. You're in front of all the superintendents. You ran for one seat. You're now influencing all the seats. So God bless you for we're all sending our warm thoughts with you tomorrow. To our listeners who joined us tonight and for all of this active engagement tonight, thank you for joining this conversation. We will continue to have these kind of dialogues every week. It's too critical of a conversation to not have. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a good week. We will see you all next Wednesday. Thank you, Erin.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.